and gentlemen, let's welcome once again Laurent Allard.
Hello. Hello. So, very interesting session this morning. No? It was quite a lot of good takeaway. Personally, I took a few confirmation. One is sovereign cloud does matter. It's a real topic and there is a real demand, a real market. Second, a lot of energy in Europe is currently spent to develop regulation framework, the UCS, Data Act, all of this framework of regulation, a huge investment in a very aggressive strategy for digital transformation of Europe as a global economy, digital-driven. But third, there is still a big gap because we still don't know what we are talking about. There's still a lot of confusion. And this is where this session is going to contribute somewhere to help first agree on what could be the baseline of definition on risk and opportunities that we have, and how you, as cloud service providers, managed service providers, partner of this ecosystem, can take advantage of what exists today to move forward and to differentiate. So that's the objective of this slot. And going straight to the beginning, as I've introduced, we don't know exactly what it is, but let's make a try by using a very simple framework to define a sovereign cloud landscape according to three axes: security, privacy, interoperability, portability. And it's a little bit like a Maslow pyramid. You have first absolute need to guarantee the security of your data. If something happens, like in Ukraine, like in disaster situation, you lose your sovereignty. So the security, it's about protection, resiliency, physical security, backup, recovery. It has to be part of the agenda. The second is privacy, because if your data are up and running live somewhere, you need to guarantee that there is no external access, that nobody is going to use your own personal data for uncontrolled situation. So the privacy is key. And third, it's not for static storage, compute of legacy system. It's about innovation, opening to new data ecosystem. Later on, we will have Pierre Gondlier, who is going to talk about the evolution of this demand for the data ecosystems. It's growing. Innovation on digital is everywhere. We have billions of investment everywhere, every year, in the different, everywhere in terms of sectors, geography, on digital. So how we can map all of this complex agenda of regulation in this framework? Yesterday I had a discussion with a few of you to say, I've tried to put in one slide the different regulation. So it's a tentative. Don't take it as a given, but I've tried to capture the different components with two parts. One is what is infrastructure relative, where Data Act, NIS, Data Governance Act, etc. can operate. And we see that it does cover a couple of important points, but it does not cover all. But we have a series of regulations which are country-specific. We talk about Second Cloud, is country-specific is France. C5 is German. We have a few in Netherlands. So we have some additional, but not at Europe level. And we have others who are more focusing on the service level, application level, which complement with AI, cyber resiliency, etc. And some are mixed. So it's not a very strict definition, but it gives a certain overview of the landscape of regulation as it is. And last but not least, we spent quite a lot of time this morning to talk about EUCS. Andreas made a very good update on where we are. So you see that it's in progress, but it's not totally defined. And what will be the exact scope of the final version of EUCS? Compared to last year, we have seen a serious cut on some of the important elements which was in the initial version. What will be in the final version and how it's going to be deployed. So the bottom line is a lot of work is done on regulation. Nevertheless, you see, a lot of gaps still exist. So when you listen a conversation with an hyperscaler who say, oh, trust me, I'm your friend, I'm your best friend, because I'm compliant with all of the regulation. Is it enough? Is it enough? If you go to just to take an analogy, basic analogy, if you take the car, you go to the street, you drive the car, and you say, you can trust me, I have my license. Good. Does it prevent you to have an accident? Does it help you to be the winner of the next Formula One race? No. It's a basic. It's mandatory. So when an hyperscaler says, trust me because I am compliant with your regulation, that's a minimum. If not, you're out of business. So what is important when you engage a discussion with your client is to start to recognize the gaps. And we see two major gaps that clearly, as of today, are bombs somewhere. One is for sure about this zone between security and privacy. I call it immunity. Because Cloud Act, FISA 702 exist. And no one of a US headquarter base in US delivering cloud services can prevent to be compliant with Cloud Act and FISA 702. It's just basic. They need to comply with the regulation of their country. For years, it was a domain of gray zone, yes, but not really. Now it's clear. For those who have not seen the announcement from June 24 this year, just before summer, in the UK, during an official commission in Scotland, Microsoft has been obliged to provide a response. Are we exposed or not? And Microsoft said, I can't guarantee sovereignty. And it was for a particular case of the UK police sensitive data. So it's not a vaporware, it's not a simulation. No, it's a real confirmation from Microsoft that they can't guarantee sovereignty because they need to rely. And when you look at how they have announced the new Cloud for Sovereignty framework, what is specific in this framework is transparency. Now, if you are part of this group of clients, what's different from the past is not to be better protected. Transparency means you will be aware when they have to move your data to the US government. Okay. So this is one of the bombs. And the second bomb is about interoperability and portability, because the dynamic of your client or the market is not static. The move to cloud, a few years ago it was cloud first, everything in the cloud. Now we see some repatriation, we see some movement back and forth. You see some new demand for ecosystem where data highly confidential on-prem have to move to a public cloud to be connected to a vertical, etc. So the interoperability is not only across the different cloud providers, it's also between the on-prem and the cloud. And the bridge, and some of you maybe will start to, in the afternoon, discuss about how the connection between what is running on-prem but being managed as a cloud versus what is managed in your own data centers as cloud provider. More and more we see demand for flexibility. It's not a wall. It's just a series of snapshots where the clients have different strategy because of the overall business requiring more on-prem, more on the public cloud, or in a distributed mode with two cloud service providers, etc. So all of this portability and interoperability is critical. So that's where we are. So we need more than what exists, even if we have a lot of great regulations. Great Data Act, EUCS, and others, it's not enough. So, if it's not enough, what can we do? At VMware by Broadcom, what we did last 2 years, we did develop a list, a checklist of 20 points. This year, we have simplified, focusing on the 10 most critical imperatives for sovereignty. And we have 3 groups: data sovereignty, operational sovereignty, and infrastructure sovereignty. The first one is very basic, straightforward, but it's fundamental to guarantee that all of the data, including the metadata, are fully local. No copy of any kind of management data, whatever, associated to the overall global deployment of hyperscaler systems. So it's a local deployment of every single component of the data. It's fully immune of external jurisdiction. Fully. Not, yes, but. No, it's full jurisdiction control for the client. You can encrypt with external keys owned by the client. So there is a full control of the way the data is secure at encryption level. The entity is local. You have a company with an existence of a business and alignment on the local regulation with local teams. It's not to be offshored and managed by third party. And with resiliency, sometimes we see announcement of a new data center in a country, but the backup is somewhere else. And the archives are in another region. No, all of that need to be in the same. And in terms of infrastructure, full reversibility, no locking, no proprietary component which will impact the application and which will create reinvestment if we need to change. By country / by verticals, the full scope of certification required for the security of the particular data. And we discussed about it this morning, but the network is also a key component. How you isolate and segment and control that the flow of data at network level is also protected, because we are talking about sovereign cloud, but in our definition is include network, sovereign network. And last but not least, if the client wants a dedicated or an isolated fully air gap, we need to be able to do it. So it's something that, depending on the type of demand of the client, we need to be able. So when you look at that, we are not talking about VCF, we are talking about fundamental design principles which drive a guarantee of sovereignty for the end client. And the way we have done it in one single page with very simple terminology for this version for this year is a way for you to take it and engage with the end client at CXO level. Do you have a concern? Is it something which is important for you? Yes, no. Because if you start from this list, next, you can compare with an alternative classic hyperscalers, public cloud, as we say, but native, from hyperscalers. And when you check if you agree on all of these 10, and this is what you have done, this is your environment, de facto you see a serious gaps with what others can come as an alternative discussion. And interesting to understand how long it takes to cover for the public hyperscalers to start to be close as possible. It takes time and huge investment, because this concept being native European or non-native European is something which creates a lot of challenge for those who are non-native European, because every single line, it's a source of investment. If you are not native, to address jurisdiction control, say, oh, I'm going to create a joint venture, and I'm going not to be visible as a head of, but so you need to invest. If you say, oh, the team is local, okay, you need to invest on expertise. If you want to have data centers, it's billion of investment. And if we ask, but the backup needs to be also in the same region, oh, it's another series. And when you look at what has been publicly announced by the hyperscalers over the last 2 years, each have announced more than 10 billion euro investment for the coming years for sovereignty in Europe because of the market opportunity. So one clear takeaway of these 10 criteria is we in Europe, all of us, have an existing positive differentiation that we need to highlight. Every single hyperscaler is trying to cover as much as possible the gap, but they will never cover 100% because the full jurisdiction control, there is no, as we speak, a full solution to address this requirement. The portability is also a challenge, so gaps will still exist. And in between, this is an opportunity to grow. And the curve we have seen with Matteo, the 15% market share, we start because the figures, if you have the picture of this slide from this morning, it was ended at second quarter of 22. If you look second quarter 24, the latest data, you see that we are in a flat now curve. We stop losing market share as we did for the last 10 years. In 5 years, Europe has lost 10 points of market share for IaaS. 5 years. 10 points of market share lost. With Sovereign Cloud, with this differentiation, we start to see a beginning of a recovery. This is a real opportunity for growth. So, technology, how it can help deploying this Sovereign Cloud based on your different existing data centers, existing capability expertise. The foundation is very basic, it's VCF. And compared to last year, it's no longer a dedicated SKU with a dedicated setup, dedicated contract. No, it's a standard VCF that you already have. As long as VCF, you deploy VCF with a reference architecture which align this deployment to the 10 criteria. And in between, I've heard some of our partners who say, my starting point is it's not 100% VCF. The 10 criteria is not negotiable. The full VCF deployment is something we can understand in the overall deployment where you are. This is not a technology topic first, it's a guarantee of sovereignty for the end client. This is the number one criteria when you go in this process, when you do your self-assessment with the 10 criteria, is because you can guarantee that you have the full jurisdiction control, you have the full local operations, and so on and so forth from the 10. And on top of that, you can add added value services. And this afternoon, we'll spend a couple of sessions. So we are pleased to welcome NVIDIA this afternoon. We are pleased to welcome partners who have started to have experience. We have other partners who are going to talk about innovation. We are seeing some added value services in the different sessions you will see later on. Because at the end, we are talking about business development and innovation. And this infrastructure, sovereign, is a guarantee that all of the data required for this innovation agenda are fully under control. And you can deploy it in different ways. You can deploy it in an industry focus for a particular setup of a bank industry, healthcare industry, whatever. You can deploy it in a dedicated for a client, a government, a large bank, or whatever. But you can also deploy it in an air gap for secret defense. And when you look at what we have done as we speak, when the partner you have done today, over 300 sovereign cloud for government defense in dedicated air gap have already been deployed in Europe, 300. So this architecture has been deployed at scale. This is the number one footprint of what exists in sovereign cloud in Europe. In the world, looking now to the global picture of the partners, thanks to the starting point from the last 2 years and the onboarding of new partners this year, we have over 50 partners who have been through this self-attestation process and who have a full alignment on this criteria to promote a sovereign cloud offer. This is, in the world, the biggest footprint of sovereign cloud platform compared to any hyperscaler. This is huge. And you can manage it not only one by one, but you can manage it also as a distributed offer. You can agree with a particular partner for a particular client that you can organize yourself to spread a workload with two contracts to complement each other. So it's a very interesting dynamic. And we see that Europe is number one for sure, but it's not limited to Europe. We have in the room a partner from South Africa. I don't know where. Here you are. Hello. Long trips to come. Thank you. We have partner in Asia Pac. We have partner in Australia. We have partner in Canada and Mexico. And we have been asked also in the US, which is interesting, sovereign cloud, because the 10 criteria have a lot of sense for many businesses. And the fact that it's an asset, they want to control the way they fully secure. For sure, they are not going to be immune from the US regulation for this particular, but the 9 other points are totally valid. So I'm going to wrap up now with 2 quick slides on what it is in terms of benefits. First, from a CSP perspective. What benefits, what outcome can you expect? First, sovereign cloud is strategic differentiation. We are not here to say we have bad guys and good guys. It's not the point. We are not here to say cloud is very easy, it's sovereign. No. Sovereign cloud addresses a part of the landscape of requirement, which is confidential, critical, sensitive data. But it represents a sizable part of the new investment. So it's a huge opportunity to differentiate because you have the fact, you have the capability, and when you look, we started this morning of a quick survey online asking European sovereign cloud what is on Google first. A lot of you have said AWS, AWS. Interesting, AWS, the first deployment is December 25 in Germany. So we are talking about something which does not exist, but it's number 1 on the Google search compared to what you have today. So you have proven since years that you can develop trust, qualitative, secured services for your client. You align on their need for sovereignty. You can do it now. You don't need to wait 25 December, whatever. Second, you have access to new kind of business opportunities. And this is something which is specific to sovereign cloud, because we are not talking about on-demand, transaction-based, day per day, a little bit of capacity, less and more. We are talking about strategic partners and strategic investments. And this afternoon, you will see a couple of very interesting sessions where large, extra large, or extra large deals happen now in Europe because of the requirement for sovereignty. So it's a new kind of business, multi-year recurrent revenue, very large. Very large, in our definition, is over millions of revenue per year for one single project, for one single client that you can achieve. Third, margin. It's the same VCF. There is no longer SKU, it's the same stack, same software. You deploy with some cost according to the level of services. For sure, an air gap solution will cost more. But all of the extra element of pricing you can justify with added value services is margin. So you have an opportunity here to do better with bigger deals. So that's in a short what we can say for the CSP and for the client, the end client. The 2 main components in our definition is about controlling the data security, the data privacy, to protect the data without any compromise. They can do innovation and data protection in the same agenda. It's not one or the other. And then they can do it with a view of future flexibility, because it's not just a one-shot, one-step process. It's a long-term partnership they want to build with a partner who can have this flexibility to move from on-prem to the cloud, to move to the cloud to a spread in a different way. So the client is in a position to do what we name choice and control. He can choose his partners, and at any point in time, he has a full control that anything bad is going to happen on his data. With that, one or two questions before to let real experience to be shared on stage.
So thank you very much. Thank you, Laurent. So we will indeed take two questions. There is one from the online participants, and we will take one from the audience here. So while you prepare and you can raise your hand, someone will pass with the mic. The first question for you, Laurent, is, building on what you have just shared, does quote-unquote full jurisdictional control include that foreign jurisdiction can't compel CSP to make software changes? If so, how? And if not, why is that not necessary?
We need to take care of a fast way of responding to say yes. We need to understand the change on the software. There is some limits because you can create with SaaS kind of software some bridge with external source of US connection, which could create some damage. So we have been at VMware facing this issue because we are ourselves a US company, and we are delivering the software in a way which don't damage this full jurisdiction control. So this is something we have experienced for ourselves, and we are very pleased when you engage a discussion at local CSP level to extend, because this is something which unfortunately happened as a risk for many other software elements. But yes, we can do it. There is it's not a blocking point without solution.
Thank you very much. I hope that answers the question from our online participant. Question from the audience over here. Yes, madam. Could you please tell us your name, the company you come from, and your question?
Yes, thank you. My name is Alix Fontaine. I'm with the French Association of Large Companies, AFEP. My question is related to certification and SecNumCloud. It's a topic we already covered a bit, but do your partners have certified recognition at national level, and how would you see a harmonized certification at the European level and the potential impact on not having sovereign requirements for that certification? Thank you.
So, very, very good question. SecNumCloud, our dream should be to have a European SecNumCloud. It should be very easy. Unfortunately, we have heard this morning, it will not happen. SecNumCloud, unfortunately, was proposed by France to become the UCS at European level. For different reasons, geopolitical reasons and others, it will not happen. So what we do, we continue to work closely in France with partners having SecNumCloud. But for those who are not in France, what we try to do, we maximize alignment on equivalent kind of, even if it's not at the same level, but when it exists, like in Germany, what we can leverage as local presence. But what we have done with these 10 criteria is to try to inject in other countries who have no equivalent of SecNumCloud, the fundamental principles to protect the end client. What we are looking for is end client. And everywhere in Europe, with these 10 criteria, we guarantee that our partners are delivering a level of sovereignty which is a best in class. SecNumCloud is, by design, a more formal setup that France has developed. But the flip side, to be also transparent, is unfortunately, in France, it exists, but we have seen a lot of investment from large critical data who have not been aligned in their requirement to SecNumCloud. So we need also to recognize that there is also some confusion, I would say, in the alignment between high level of requirement and the way to apply it for large investment with critical data. And my guess, my wish is that politics in the different countries, CXO in the different large banks and large health hospital and so on are going to force SecNumCloud or equivalent or this kind of checklist when it goes to a critical investment for sensitive data. Okay?
I believe that answers the question.
For those, as we said, we have drink later on, we'll have some break, but for those who have tomorrow, the day after, next week, some other points, I'm open on LinkedIn. You can connect, and I will be pleased to follow up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laurent.